In a prior video, I covered the song The Temple of Syrinx from Rush's 2112 album, released in 1976. In that video, I tried to demonstrate that Rush had occult knowledge and conveyed that in their song. I said that I believe the esoteric meaning of that song is that the priests of the Temple of Syrinx are the priests of Pan, otherwise known as Azazel, especially in a musical sense because Pan's pipes were actually Syrinx, and Syrinx is a nymph from Greek mythology who was transformed into a reed and then used by Pan on his flute. I also said that the 5-pointed star within the circle on the cover of their 2112 album was witchcraft. And they never changed it, so it wasn't like they were just trying to be edgy in their youth, because the cover that I'm showing now is from a re-release of the same album in 2016. In this video, I will cover the Rush band members and some of their other songs to establish this pattern of witchcraft. And this is important because even though you might think that you know some of the rock bands are on the dark side, the point that I try to make with examples of different bands who are clearly into witchcraft is that they are knighted by the monarchy or honored with an order. And this is a recurring pattern, which I cover on my channel. And that is very important because it not only demonstrates that these individual bands and their members are on the dark side, but it also demonstrates that they are honored for what the crown terms in honor for their, quote, contributions. All the long-standing foundational members of Rush are Order of Canada, Alex Lifeson, Geddy Lee, and Neil Peart. And Canada is a Commonwealth nation, and the Crown honors UK and Commonwealth favored citizens with an order for their contributions. So what are their contributions? Well, first we can look at this 5-pointed star within the circle and other examples of the same layout, the 5-pointed star within the circle, which the powers call sacred geometry, because it's also within street grid layouts of key cities and buildings, which are very significant to the polytheists. Washington, D.C.'s sacred geometric street grid layout was designed by Freemason Pierre L'Enfant, and it includes a 5-pointed star within a circle with their sacred architecture on the 5 points. This layout is based on ancient spiritual wisdom and cosmology. The Anglican churches in London, designed by supposedly Hawksmoor, are arranged in locations forming a pentagram with ritual significance. Hawksmoor was supposedly mentored by Sir Christopher Wren, a founder of the Royal Society, a Rosicrucian, and member of the Invisible College. Notice he has a square and compass in his hand. The Royal Society was called the last of the sorcerers and the first of the scientists, and they used to be named the Invisible College. The Royal Society is the oldest and most respected scientific society in the world. The same sacred geometry and architecture was used in the construction of ancient Rome, Greece, and Egypt. But regarding Rush, to establish this pattern of witchcraft, I want to review other songs produced by this band with a focus on Neil Peart, who was the primary lyricist. So Neil Peart is their bard because the lyrics are a type of poetry and they are pagan in honor of their polytheist gods, which we will see. And bards historically would sing or chant their poetry in honor of their pagan gods and their polytheist history and on behalf of the monarchy. And this is still going on today, and it's why these people are honored. So ancient seers were poets who chanted or sang to foretell the future, reported to be divinely or spiritually inspired, but doing so in a frenzied or possessed manner. These were also a type of bard. The name Vatican comes from the Latin name Vaticanus. The first part, vates, means prophet, diviner, poet, and canos, meaning to sing or chant. So these vates were possessed singing poets or bards, and they were a priest class. They were druids because the origin of the term vates goes back to Indo-European, Nordic, and Celtic traditions linked to Woden or Odin, who was lord of the elves. Remember that. And when you think of Geddy Lee singing the Rush lyrics, does it not seem like he's frantic? He's literally singing, "We are the priests of the temple of Syrinx," which is Pan's flute, Azazel's flute, because Azazel was degraded to a hairy goat god, so Pan is Azazel. And Azazel is on the Grand Lodge of England heraldry. I showed that in my prior video. So I'm going to read the lyrics to their song Witch Hunt from their album Moving Pictures, released in 1981, because it's the most obvious example that they were into witchcraft, and it will give context to their other songs and other information that I will cover later. And they were deep into it. For sure, Neil Peart was. This song, Witch Hunt, rebukes people who stand against witchcraft. This is the official video from their YouTube channel, Rush's YouTube channel. And this one being burned here has her hair done just like Khaleesi from Game of Thrones. This song was recorded on the day John Lennon died, December 8th of 1980. John Lennon, in his song Mind Games, sang that he was a druid dude. So I don't think he was ever knighted because he died, but all the other band members were. Here are the lyrics to Witch Hunt written by the drummer, Neil Peart. And the vigilantes referred to in this song are those who stand against witchcraft like me. So here are the lyrics. The night is black without a moon, the air is thick and still. The vigilantes gather on the lonely torch-lit hill. Features distorted in the flickering light, faces are twisted and grotesque. Silent and stern in the sweltering night, mob moves like demons possessed. Quiet in conscience, calm in their right, confident their ways are best. The righteous rise with burning eyes of hatred and ill will. Madmen fed on fear and lies to beat and burn and kill. They say there are strangers who threaten us, are immigrants and infidels. They say there is strangeness too dangerous in our theaters and bookstore shelves. Those who know what's best for us must rise and save us from ourselves. Quick to judge, quick to anger, slow to understand. Ignorance and prejudice and fear walk hand in hand. So, but who's the ignorant? Is it us or them? Because we're going to see what happened later. And the Bible also says that, this is bad. It shouldn't be tolerated. So now let's talk about Neil Peart first and how he influenced Rush and the lyrics. The claim is that Neil Peart moved from Canada to London at the outset of his career when he was 18 years old in 1972. It says that his time in London was discouraging, so he moved back to Toronto, where he joined Rush in 1974. But I wonder what he was doing in London. There seems to be a pattern with some of these artists involved in the UK scene. Then their career takes off, but their music also takes a turn towards occult content. This is true with Taylor Swift, who they claim was dating Joe Alwyn from 2016 to 2023, which is when she started making all the witchy music. Alwyn is a Welsh actor and bloodliner from Tunbridge, Wales, so was he dating her or were they grooming her? Rush's first album before Neil Peart became the drummer and lyricist was bluesy rock, nothing occult about it. It was released in March of 1974 before Peart joined the band in July of 1974. And then you see a complete change to the theme of their music with Fly By Night, released. That was their next released album, released in February of 1975. And this is the first release after Peart joined the band and started writing the lyrics. So this is when the band became successful also. So there's an almost 9-minute song series on this album titled By Tor and the Snow Dog, which includes several parts. And the first part is At the Tobes of Hades. The second part is Across the Styx. And there's a third and an epilogue. Here are the lyrics. Tobes of Hades lit by flickering torchlight, the netherworld is gathered in the glare. Prince by Tor takes Cavern to the north light, the sign of Eth rising in the air. By Tor, knight of darkness, centurion of evil, devil's prince, across the river Styx out of the lamplight, his nemesis is waiting at the gate, the snow dog, Armine, glowing in the damp night, coal-black eyes shimmering with hate. By Tor and the snow dog square for battle. Let the fray begin. The battle's over and the dust is clearing. Disciples of the snow dog sound the knell. Rejoicing echoes as the dawn is nearing. By Tor and defeat retreats to hell. Snow dog is victorious. The land of the overworlds is saved again. So these people always report an exoteric meaning to their songs. Pert always said that his lyrics were based on literature that he read, which is probably true, but it's occult literature. But if you never read their explanations, you would conclude that the lyrics were about witchcraft because they are. So these people lie, just like their father, the devil. The band members claim to be atheist, but they're very religious in their dedication to their craft. So that song there is Fire and Ice symbolism, which is very occult, and I've covered that before in other videos. But as one example, A Song of Fire and Ice is the name of the books written by what they say is the American Tolkien, George R.R. Martin, which are the books that the Game of Thrones were based on. And you also have the snow imagery like Jon Snow from House Stark, whose symbol was the wolf, so he's a type of snow dog. The other song from Fly By Night I want to review is Rivendell. Rivendell is a magical, elvish, Celtic otherworld in J.R.R. Tolkien's Middle-earth in Lord of the Rings. The elven path of Celtic druidism is ancient, but has been brought forward in history. I'll read those lyrics to Rivendell. Sunlight dances through the leaves, soft wind stirs the sighing trees. Lying in the warm grass, feel the sun upon your face. Elfin songs and endless nights, sweet wine and soft relaxing lights. Time will never touch you here in this enchanted place. You feel there's something calling you. You're wanting to return to where the misty mountains rise and friendly fires burn, a place where you can escape the world, where the dark Lord cannot go, peace of mind and sanctuary by loud waters flow. I've traveled now for many miles. It feels so good to see the smiles of friends who never left your mind. When you are far away from the golden light of coming dawn till the twilight where the sun is gone, where treasure every season and every passing day. We feel the coming of a new day. Darkness gives way to light a new way. Stop here for a while until the world calls you away. Yet you know, I've had the feeling standing with my senses reeling, this is the place to grow old till I reach my final day. So the elves in the Lord of the Rings are connected to Druidism and the Tuatha De Danann, which are elven fairies. Elf derives from Alf, A-E-L-F, which means white. This whiteness is a kind of like the vampires or ghosts or shades. Gary Wayne says the Nephilim had very pale white skin. But then when the Nephilim would have perished in the flood, they became spirits, so it would make sense that they are described with a word that means white. There are suggestions in the alien disclosure media currently that crypto-terrestrials, some of them are elves. The Harvard researchers said in a paper they published last year, quote, "These crypto-terrestrials could have come to Earth from a different time period, or they could be a remnant of an ancient civilization largely destroyed long ago, possibly by a flood, something likened to earthbound angels, creatures perhaps of a magical supernatural origin like fairies, elves, and nymphs, and concealing themselves in distinct stealth." And that's a direct quote from that Harvard paper. Do you think Neil Peart knew about this and experienced it back in the 70s? His lyrics definitely seem to suggest that. The next album is Caress of Steel. The first song I want to cover from that album is also about elves. Fountains of Lamneth is actually a 20-minute song series. I'm not going to read the lyrics, but it appears to be about astral travel into a mystical world. In this world is a fountain named for an elf named Lamneth, who was originally immortal but achieved godhood. One of the sections of this song, called Panacea, is the name of a healing goddess derived from Greek Pan, as in the god Pan or Azazel. Panacea is also described as a mythical plant or potion. Notice the poppies here in this painting. It's pharmakia, always associated with sorcery. It's a very weird painting because the female looks masculine and there are children watching. Another section of the Fountains of Lamneth is Bacchus Plateau, Bacchus being another pagan god in the Roman pantheon. The other song on this album is titled The Necromancer, and it's about a necromancer who communicates with dead or spirits. So that's witchcraft. The next album, 2112, we've already talked about, released in 1976, which was about the priests of the Temple of Pan or Azazel. After 2112, Rush started recording some of their albums in Wales and London. A Farewell to Kings, Hemispheres, Power Windows, Hold Your Fire. Some of the recording locations were residential manor houses in Wales, which I think is odd. They would have used these remote locations as recording studios, and I suspect something else might have been going on there. So Rockfield Studios in Wales was named for nearby pre-flood standing stones. It's also a famous recording location for other bands such as Queen. Manor Recording Studio in Oxfordshire, England, was established in 1971 by Virgin Records founder Sir Richard Branson, Knight of the Crown. A Farewell to Kings contains another song series titled Cygnus X1, The Voyage, and it's a story that actually carries forward to their subsequent album Hemispheres. This is a video on Rush's official YouTube site. Notice the poppies again. It's the story of a black hole known as Cygnus X1, thought to be a black hole in real life. In Book 1, On a Farewell to Kings, an explorer is drawn by the pull of gravity. His body is destroyed and he becomes a wandering soul. Then in Book 2, on their Hemispheres album, the soul emerges at Mount Olympus, where he witnesses Apollo and Dionysus. The gods recognize him as a god and name him Cygnus, the god of balance. Another song on the album Hemispheres is The Trees, and it's about trees which have consciousness, just like the UFO Navy Admiral Timothy Gallaudet talks about. Believing that trees have consciousness is a druidic belief. They have more albums after that, but I'm not going to keep going because you get the idea. They have Roll the Bones, that's witchcraft. In Moving Pictures is where Witch Hunt, that song, was on that album. So what happened to Neil Peart in London, and what did he bring back? So while he was in London originally, it says he worked in a jewelry store, a famous jewelry store titled The Great Frog. It's a famous rock and roll jewelry shop with deep ties to the music industry, and particularly the history of Rush. I believe that's probably Geddy Lee there on the left. It's handmade jewelry, and it's very demonic. Yeah. So, they're famous, their little eyeball ring. But also, Arnold Schwarzenegger with his goat ring. It says the flagship store in London opened in 1972 and is owned by the son of the original founders named Riley and Carol, or Patterson Riley and Carol Riley. The son has expanded the brand and now has stores in New York, LA, and Tokyo. Couldn't find out about the owners, but obviously they are in the club or they would not have had this business with those connections. So Neil Peart's daughter, Selena, was killed at age 19 in 1997. It's reported that her Jeep crashed in Ontario. There was no other vehicle involved in this accident. So that seems strange considering that suspicious deaths often occur for club people or their family members. It says that after she died, Neil Peart took a long-distance motorcycle trip to contemplate his life and deal with her death. and he wrote the book Ghost Rider about that trip. But the Ghost Rider origin story is about a stunt motorcyclist who made a deal with a demon, which bonded him with the spirit of vengeance, turning him into a Ghost Rider. Thanks for listening.